Good morning, everybody. It's wonderful to be here. Dear stakeholders, dear internet community, it's a huge pleasure for me to be here to moderate, together with my colleague Mark, this main session of the Dynamic Coalition. My name is Irina Zevki. I'm from Germany, and there I'm Director for National, European, and International Digital Policy with the federal government. We are, and this has been said many times at this forum, at a very important time for internet governance. The Global Digital Compact has just been adopted in September and is now waiting for its implementation. Therefore, we thought that it would be very fitting to discuss a bit the contributions that the dynamic coalitions have for the implementation of the 5 key objectives of the Global Digital Compact. And just to start from equal footing, I'll read them to you once again so that we all know what we are talking about. And the GDC is around for quite a while, so maybe someone has forgotten, but they are. First, bridging digital divides and accelerating progress toward the Sustainable Development Goals. 2, expanding digital economy, inclusion, and benefits for all. 3, fostering safe, secure, and inclusive digital space that upholds human rights. 4, advancing responsible, equitable, and interoperable data governance. And 5, enhancing global AI governance for humanity's benefit. So it's really about all, the very big picture. And yeah, it's so very fitting that we meet here today. This session builds really well on last year's Dynamic Coalition main session. It was called The Internet We Want, Human Rights in the Digital Space to Accelerate the SDGs. And it was really an ideal platform for sustainable digital development discussions. It also fits into the topic of this IGF very well. It has one sub-theme which is particularly fitting for what we do today or intend to do today. It's improving digital governance for the internet we want. And with that broad picture, I hand it over to my colleague Mark, who will tell you a bit more about what is about to happen here on stage.
Okay, thank you very much, Irina. And good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for coming at this early hour during a busy week here in Riyadh at the IGF. It's much appreciated, and welcome everybody who's following us today online. It's very good for you to have you with us today. As Irina said, I'm sharing the moderation with her for this session. My background is I was with the UK government on digital policy going back all the way back to 2005 and the Tunis summit of the World Summit of the Information Society. So I've been to most IGFs, and since leaving UK government, I've continued to be engaged with the IGF community as a member of a dynamic coalition, IS3C, which is the Dynamic Coalition on Internet Standards, Security and Safety. I'm a senior policy advisor with that dynamic coalition, and which we're one of the coalitions that we'll cover this morning. So I have that role, and also I'm working with EURIDIG, the European Regional IGF, on the Global Digital Compact. I've been chairing the consultations undertaken by EURIDIG on that and inputting into the co-facilitators' consultations with stakeholders on behalf of EURIDIG. So it's great to co-moderate this session, which I think will highlight in many ways how dynamic coalitions do have a major potential role in the Global Digital Compact and the follow-up following its signature in New York and entering now the implementation phase with an endorsement process and so on. So the dynamic coalitions are standing ready really to assist with all that process. And What we're doing here today is providing them with the opportunity to explain how they do connect with the Global Digital Compact process and the Sustainable Development Agenda as well. There are 31 dynamic coalitions currently, covering a diverse range of technology, governance, sectoral and public policy issues, opportunities and challenges. So they're very focused, year-round IGF activities, staffed by volunteers, and we will advocate people who are interested today in following up potentially as a member of a coalition. This is very easy to do. You just sign up, basically. It'll be a great opportunity for stakeholders who want to get involved through the dynamic coalitions. We'll talk about that right at the end. But as I say, the coalitions do cover a wide range of issues. And 21 of the 31 coalitions immediately stepped forward when the coordination group of the dynamic coalitions said, you know, we're going to have a main session which is focused on the Global Digital Compact and sustainable development. They stepped forward and said, look, we are, you know, doing work which is highly relevant to the scope of the compact and so on. So what we're doing here today is we're going through the objectives which Irina recounted for us at the beginning, one by one, with representatives of the clusters of dynamic coalitions that have said this particular objective is the one that we are the most potentially engaged in, giving you a quick explanation of what those coalitions are for each objective. And then we'll have a little bit of, in the panel, just a little bit of discussion for each objective. And then after that, we will then really open it out to everybody who's taking part in an interactive discussion. So save your questions, comments, reactions, and anything else you want to raise with any of the speakers or any of the representatives of the dynamic coalitions when we reach that part of today's session. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you think the coalitions can do perhaps more, and areas where they can collaborate amongst themselves. That's very important to bear in mind. There are coalitions that do work in the similar sort of sectoral areas, and they can usefully collaborate in this whole environment of the Global Digital Compact. So that's what we'll do. I think I've probably said enough. We will want to try and define some messages and potential outcomes from this session. And Jutta Kroll, who's helped to organize this session, is ready with us to come and support Irina and me in wrapping up with some potential ways forward, recommendations, what we might do in terms of engaging as a coalition community with the whole GDC process. We'll do that at the end in about 10 minutes. So the emphasis is on participation, hearing from you. That's what we want to. We have a bit of a download of information. We'll go through that as succinctly as possible, but that's a preface really for hearing from you. I think I'll stop there with the explanation. I hope that's all clear. Hand back to you, Irina, for kicking off with objectives. Yes.
Perfect. And with that, we're getting started. It's a pleasure to first introduce June Paris, who unfortunately cannot be here today, but luckily she's with us online. And it's really hard to present or to introduce a person like June in just 30 seconds, which is almost impossible. She is not only an experienced nurse, but she's also engaged in groundbreaking research. Lately, she has worked on nutrition in pregnant women. She has extensive experience in business development, research and startup involvement, as well as business support and voluntary work. I could on forever now, but I'm glad to hand it over to her, and she will talk about the possible contributions of dynamic coalitions to the Global Digital Compact's objective of bridging digital divides. Over to you, June. can you hear us? We can't hear you yet. We can't hear you yet, so maybe there is someone, some technical person that can help us to fix the internet and make it open, accessible, and everything else. If not, we could also wait and maybe you try to fix the technical problems and we start with our second speaker. Perfect. Then I hand it over to you, Mark.
Okay, back to me then, Irina. Thank you. Yes. Okay, let's hopefully come back to June and Objective 1 a little later when the technical issue is resolved. So let's go to Objective 2, expanding the digital economy, inclusion and benefits for all. So our speaker to describe the coalitions in this cluster is Dr. Mohammed Shabir, who is a member of Internet Society's Accessibility Special Interest Group, is a member of the Pakistan ISOC chapter and a member of the Digital Coalition on Accessibility and Disability, DCAD. So, Dr. Shabir, can I hand over to you to describe the cluster of dynamic coalitions who have signaled that they are most interested in Objective 2 and contributing to that objective. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And Assalamu alaikum, good morning to everyone. It is a privilege to address this session where we gather as representatives of the IGF's diverse and dynamic community to align our collective contributions with Global Digital Compact. As part of this significant milestone in the global digital governance, our work announces and aligns with the Global Digital Compact and indicates inclusion, accessibility, and sustainability in the digital economy. The specific objective I am addressing today, expanding digital economy, inclusion, and benefits for all, is foundational to achieving this vision. The GDC demands that all stakeholders work collaboratively to dismantle barriers, promote digital equity, and harness technology to empower individuals and communities. I am honored to represent 4 of the dynamic coalitions in our community as displayed. And these dynamic coalitions collectively show that if we want, we can achieve anything in the digital arena. Together, these coalitions exemplify how collaborations and shared experiences strengthen the IGF ecosystem and drive the implementation of GDC. Each coalition operates with a shared ethos of inclusivity, equity, and sustainability, building bridges between stakeholders and addressing the critical challenges in the way of digital development. As we all know, access to digital financial services is cornerstone of economic inclusivity. DCDFI has been working tirelessly to dismantle the barriers that prevent marginalized groups from participating in the digital economy. Through discussions, the DCDFI has identified key barriers such as interoperability issues, restrictive policies, and gaps in the digital and financial literacy to harness access to equitable, affordable, and effective digital financial services. Knowledge is a public good, and the DCOER is committed to making it universal and accessible by promoting openly licensed content as a foundational cornerstone of digital inclusion. DCOER contributes to advancing the goal of GDC and its principle of inclusivity, accessibility, and innovation. Open licenses are something that in educational context provide access to different linguistic and other cultures to access to the information. And by equipping individuals with the skill to drive in the digital economy, the DCOER is transforming education into a catalyst for sustainable development. In any of the digital inclusion services, it is required that persons with disabilities can also fully participate. DCAD has been at the forefront of advancing for accessibility in the digital platforms and policies. The vision of DCAD is clear, where each and every person, regardless of the ability, has the access to the information and digital content. This year, DCAD is revising its accessibility guidelines for IGF meetings, which can also be used by other organizations. We also have 4 fellows, persons with lived experience of disability in these corridors, participating inclusively. Environmental exclusion. Sustainability is not just an environmental imperative, it is an economic opportunity. And DCE advances for the interoperability of green policies into digital governance. We all know that the work of these coalitions may seem that as if they are operating in silos, but they work together. When their work is collectively seen as a comprehensive, cohesive unit, they say that economy is driven by education, includes persons with disabilities, which requires green policies. And collectively, collaboratively, we can achieve the goals of GDC and Global Digital Compact and the Vision 2030. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes, a round of applause for Dr. Shabir. Thank you very much. All those 4 coalitions are doing incredibly important work and really addressing some of the crucial challenges as well as opportunities for communities which may be marginalized or disadvantaged. And I wonder, just one question, no doubt those 4 coalitions are identifying common barriers for marginalized communities from participating in the digital economy. Do you think there is scope, particularly perhaps through collaboration amongst those coalitions, to address and resolve those barriers? What do you think? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And that's a really crucial question, where the work of one DC enters into the domain of other DC and how they collaborate with one another. If I give just the example of these 4 coalitions where we have been collaborating, DCAD, which is for the rights of persons with disabilities, has conducted webinars and sessions with the digital DC on financial inclusion to make banking systems accessible, financial systems accessible for people with disabilities. Similarly, today after this session, DCAD and DCOER are joining together in a workshop where we will be discussing how digital accessibility could be ensured for everyone in education and how this interacts with persons with disabilities and without disabilities. Similarly, DC on environment, we cannot forget environment is something that we all work towards, and we are living where we will be impacted if we don't care of it. So while we try to work in our individual domains, we try to inculcate steps where the policies and achievements, they are sustainable and green.
Thank you, Dr. Shabir. That's a great example of working together on common objectives that are directly relevant to the compact. So I'm sure this may well come up again in our discussion with people taking part today. Okay, with that, I'll hand back to you, Irina, for objective 1, maybe? Those fingers crossed?
Yeah, I think so too, and I'm checking with June Paris whether she's hearing us and whether we can hear her now.
Hello again, I can hear you very well. Can
Perfect.
you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Please, go ahead. We're looking forward to hearing you talking about bridging digital divides.
Yeah, I am June Paris. I am in Barbados at the moment, and it's 2:26 in the morning. So anyway, I will speak quickly, and I will read the introduction for SIDS. So I will start straight away. While many in the global internet community, especially those interested in issues surrounding internet governance, are fully engaged with and attuned to the developments surrounding WCIT, WTSA, and ICANN, and the challenges and opportunities brought about by emerging issues such as cloud computing, social media, and mobile technology. It is becoming increasingly apparent that a greater degree of polarization and marginalization in the area of internet policy and strategy has been slowly occurring. SIDS was found in the Caribbean, Pacific, and AIMS, which is Africa, Indian Ocean, Mediterranean, and the South China Sea regions. Small island developing states, which is SIDS, which number about 52 at the last count, and which comprise approximately 60 million people, are seeking a greater voice with a higher level of volume in the international discourse, especially that relating to information and communication technology and critical resource management. According to various reports and documents published by the United Nations and other international organizations, the SIDS share several common sustainable development challenges. Small populations, as low as 2,000 in one state, limited resources, remoteness, susceptibility to natural disasters. They're vulnerable to external economic shocks, excessive dependence on international trade, and extractive industries. Indeed, internal economies of many cities are characterized by state monopolies, effective monopolies by MNCs, and oligopolies, which often lead to price distortions for key goods and services. In the ICT sector, especially the telecommunications sector, voice and data operators are most likely to be monopolists or oligopolists, sorry, I'm having trouble with that word, with attendant issues relating to non-competitive pricing, low levels of customer service, aging infrastructure, a lack of universal accessibility with digital inclusion and digital divide scenarios, often playing out to disadvantage of one or more sectors of the population. I have experience of that, so I can say, yes, this is what's really happening. It further is on a daily basis with severe environmental, energy, and natural resource management challenges. The SIDS are hard-pressed to take full advantage of the potential in-territory benefits and opportunities made available through emerging technology, such as cloud computing and on-demand type ICT services. Given the tremendous amount of consumption of energy, capital, and natural resources that on-demand facilities of this nature demand. In this regard, and with a view to ensuring that these issues are properly ventilated amidst the debates among OECD's, G20, and BRICS countries that relate to internet and ICT policy and strategy, telecommunication standards and tariffs, universal access, and sustainable development funding approaches, it is patently obvious that the number and volume of SIDS voices must be elevated in the design, planning, and participation and collaborative activities with the larger colleagues in order to better align and contextualize policies, positions, and strategies. If I've got time, I will go on a bit. Although there are shared experiences and multiple synergies among the SIDS, it is not by any means an easy task to simply organize and facilitate this intention to raise the volume. Logistically, it is near impossible to treat with the needs of 52 countries and 60 million voices spanning thousands of miles of oceans across the globe through a single or even a series of position papers or a solitary conference session. The needs and requirements of the SIDS deserve more, a forum through which international community can hear their concerns and challenges, a forum through which SIDS can sit together and collaborate to themselves, define and offer their own possible solutions to their own problems, a forum in which exchanges of opinions, views, and possible solutions can be achieved on a level and equitable playing field. It is therefore incumbent upon the Internet Governance Forum, and indeed the wider WISES process, to provide a dedicated space forum for the SIDS to dialogue, firstly amongst themselves, and then with wider global community on a broader range of issues relating to and affecting internet policy, modernization of critical internet infrastructure resources, the economies of telecommunications service provision, telecommunication service pricing, and the relationship to sustainable development and development funding, quality of service and quality of customer service practices, all of which take full consideration the unique vulnerabilities and environmental sensitivities of these small island nations. Therefore, a dedicated and ongoing internet governance space for SIDS cuts across all the world's major geographical regions and will provide a useful example for not only multi-stakeholderism, but also South-South multilateralization and indeed cooperation. As small island developing states face the greatest risks and challenges due to the global economic downturn, double debt recession, and the Eurozone crisis, there's no better time than now to forge and harden this relationship, this partnership, and for the United Nations, the Internet Society, the International Telecommunications Union, and the other organizations to recognize and support this quantum leap forward. So I will end there for now. If there's any questions, I will go on to those questions after, when the other speakers have spoken.
Thank you so much, June, for this broad and very rich presentation. I think as we are already running a little bit late, I will also keep my questions for later for the exchange session, and then we can get into discussions later on. I'm sure there will be contributions to that because it's such a fundamental topic that you've been talking about. But I think to get us moving on, I'll go to my next presenter, which is Olivier Crépin-Leblanc. It's a pleasure to have you here. You are a founder, a co-founder, and an investor of WAF Lifestyle app. You describe yourself as a connector, bringing people together to achieve great things. And what I find particularly impressive that you are dealing with all things internet already since 1988. So you've been around forever, so to speak, experienced it all. Therefore, we are very much looking forward to you talking today about how digital dynamic coalitions can contribute to the GDC objective of fostering a safe, secure, and inclusive digital space that upholds human rights. Olivier, over to you.
Thank you very much, Irina. And you know, it feels like yesterday, 1988, the start of this whole craziness of internet and so many people coming online and so on. But anyway, I have about 4 minutes to talk to you about 5 dynamic coalitions. So I hope that you're holding onto your seats, because this is going to be rather quick. Anyway, the first one is the Internet Rights and Principles Coalition, and that's been around for quite some time, actually, and it works to uphold human rights in the online environment and to root internet governance processes and systems in human rights standards. So it does work like raise awareness of fundamental human rights on the internet, establish global public policy principles for an open internet with stakeholder involvement, encourage stakeholders to address human and civil rights in policy making, applying human rights to the internet and ICTs, and assessing existing structures and guidelines, protecting and enforcing human rights online. That's just a task by itself. Promoting people-centric, that's important, people-centric public interest in internet governance, and defining the duties and responsibilities of internet users and stakeholders to preserve the public interest online. It has produced a Charter of Human Rights and Principles back in 2011 with 21 articles and 10 principles, and it's really recommended reading. You can find it online. Very, very good work. And its contribution to the SDGs have really all come from that charter. The next one is the Dynamic Coalition on Children's Rights in the Digital Environment. And they emphasize the importance of acknowledging children as a significant demographic in internet governance. At least 1/3 of internet users are under 18. I wasn't aware of that. It's quite amazing. And their rights must be protected as outlined in the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. With the advent of AI and virtual reality, policies must prioritize children's involvement in shaping these technologies. It's their network, I guess, in the future. We're nearly gone. Addressing potential risks and ensuring safety by design. The Global Digital Compact calls for strengthened legal frameworks and national child safety priorities by 2030. So they have quite a lot of work to prepare for this, and child rights impact assessments should guide legislative actions to ensure children's best interest are a primary consideration. In some way, going from the children, widening it to young people, the Youth Coalition on Internet Governance has really worked on that. And they're bringing young people, young professionals in internet governance, particularly at the annual IGF, and you will have seen quite a number of people from this coalition at this IGF. And it serves as a natural space for youth engagement on the issues that we've already spoken about, but a range of issues such as education, research, promotion, event organization, and the topics focusing on amplifying youth voices in digital governance, which we've heard also with the previous DC is probably not strong enough, empowering youth through digital literacy, closing the digital divide, because it's not only geographical, but there's also a digital divide with, as far as age is concerned, prioritizing youth safety online, a huge issue, as we are all aware of, leveraging technologies for social good, and holding platforms accountable, which I think is quite a task for them. And all of these efforts aim to foster a more inclusive and equitable digital landscape for young people. Moving on safety, there is an Internet Standard Security and Safety Coalition, the IS3C, very active as well, and their mission, aligning with Objective 3 of the Global Digital Compact, is to enhance online security through effective deployment of security standards and best practices. good practice, I think some would call it. After extensive research and analysis, the coalition has developed policy recommendations, guidelines, and toolkits for global dissemination and identified best practices for capacity building in 3 key areas. Evolution of secure by design technologies is one of them. The second one is addressing cybersecurity skills gaps and educational curricula. Huge topic as well. And third, strengthening public sector procurement practice as a driver for security standards implementation. Security is a huge topic, as you know, on the internet. And the IS3C is considering a new work stream on consumer protection and digital trust for 2025. And to this end, consumer organizations are being consulted on a project proposal to assess whether the tech industry effectively addresses the security concerns of personal and business internet users in digital products and service design. And the proposal was actually introduced at this IGF on day 0. So if you've missed it, you probably have to watch the recording. Well, I would recommend you watch the recording. And I'll finally finish with the last one, which is the DC that I chair, which is the Dynamic Coalition on Core Internet Values. And that promotes Internet governance principles, engaging with diverse stakeholders. It ensures the Internet, or tries to ensure the Internet remains a global public resource through policy recommendations, collaborations, fora, all advocating for a free, secure, and resilient Internet for all. Now, you might wonder, what are those core Internet values? And I'll just list them because we can probably talk about those for another hour or so. But global, the Internet is global, obviously. Interoperable, open, decentralized, end-to-end, people from one end to the other, user-centric. I think we've mentioned it with another DC early on. It's really important. Robust and reliable. Yeah, the internet is pretty darn robust. And finally, secure, which is one that we had to add that originally wasn't really thought of because the internet, everyone knew each other. But these days, you have to make sure that it is secure. So together, the work of all of these dynamic coalitions fulfills the objective 3 of the GDC to the letter. And do you remember the objective? Okay, I'll remind you. Fostering a safe, secure, and inclusive space that upholds human rights. And that's what they all work on.
Yes, thank you for your applause. And thank you, Olivier. Very impressive work there as well. As we are still running a little late, I will not use my prerogative here to ask questions first, but save my questions for later on when we will get into a discussion. And with that, hand it over to Mark for our next guest.
Thank you, Irina. Yes, let's go straight on to Objective 4, Advancing Responsible, Equitable and Interoperable Data Governance. And we have the pleasure of being joined to present the cluster of coalitions relating to this objective by Tatevik Grigorian. She is a program specialist on digital information with UNESCO and is a member of the Dynamic Coalition on Internet Universality Indicators. So we have, I think on the screen, yes, there are three coalitions in this cluster. So over to you, Tatevik, please. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mark, and thank you to the colleagues for presenting the objectives and the rich work that other dynamic coalitions are doing. Just to remind of this, the aim of this objective is shaping basically a fair and inclusive digital future. And this objective emphasizes the importance of responsible data management, advocating for practices that ensure that data is collected, stored, and used ethically with a strong focus on policy and privacy and security. I have 3 dynamic coalitions in this cluster, the first one of which each one of them contribute to this objective through different type of work and focus. As objective 4 advocates for robust governance frameworks that are transparent, accountable, and inclusive, involving multiple stakeholders such as governments, private sector entities, and civil societies. I'll mention the first dynamic coalition that is on digital economy, that focuses on the economic dimension of the objective 4. Highlighting how equitable access to data and digital tools can reduce inequalities and enable sustainable growth. For example, through initiatives like the project CREATE, the coalition illustrates how responsible data use supports job creation and strengthens livelihoods, addressing the GDC's call for equitable data governance that advances inclusion and economic empowerment. So the next dynamic coalition that is contributing to this objective is the DC on data and artificial intelligence governance, which focuses on fostering critical discussions on data and AI governance, as the name implies. But it focuses on this from diverse perspectives, emphasizing inclusivity and equity, and ensuring that the voices of underrepresented populations, particularly from the Global South, are integrated into governance frameworks. The coalition promotes collective studies and multi-stakeholder engagement to evaluate evidence and propose policy updates that reflect the realities and aspirations of stakeholders globally. And finally, the dynamic coalition on internet universality indicators that I chair contributes to the, not only to the objective 4 actually, but to objective 1 and to other aspects of the GDC through its internet universality ROMEX indicators, which is a comprehensive tool. By the way, we a few days ago at IGF, we launched the revised and enhanced internet universality indicators, which help to address the emerging digital issues. This tool advocates for internet that is universal and based on principles of human rights, openness, accessibility, and governed by multi-stakeholder participation, and addresses cross-cutting issues such as gender equality, safety and security online, environmental aspect of the internet, and AI. Among others. So this is a framework which as the objective 4 underscores the data-driven policymaking and equitable access to data that reflects diverse realities. In this context, the framework provides this opportunity to ensure and to support diverse stakeholders from government to civil society and private sector to contribute to data-driven policymaking, which is based on evidence. I'll perhaps stop here. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, Tativik. That's a very comprehensive overview of the data governance agenda, and congratulations on the updating and publication of the toolkit, the indicators toolkit, and the cross-cutting issues, and as you say, how it relates specifically to responsible data governance. It's very impressive. Maybe there'll be questions and comments about that from our participants here today. Irena, back to you for the final one, I think, yes?
Thank you so much. Last but definitely not least, it's a pleasure to have Yao Amevi-Susu here. And, well, he's a research fellow for innovation and entrepreneurship. He's a real computer scientist, which I always find very impressive. I'm a lawyer myself, so I don't know nothing about all that in theory and practice. He has also a master in management and interaction design, something that I found particularly interesting, but he will not talk about that, unfortunately, today. But he'll concentrate on the contributions of dynamic coalitions to a topic that really everybody seems to be talking about at the moment, and this is enhancing global AI governance for humanity's benefit. Please, Yao, over to you.
thank you, Irina, for these introductions. Yes, and I will try to be very short as possible because I think other colleagues also from the DC are in the room and they will contribute and expand more on what I will be explaining about these 4 DCs. So the dynamic coalition, we also, like the other previous speakers, we in charge of expanding on the work of 4 dynamic coalitions that have been contributing in the unique perspective and approach in addressing key issues with the internet governance space. So first on, I will, regarding the dynamic coalition in gender and in the IGF, we know today that the voice of women, there have been progress in the voices of women in the space, but still voices of women are still underrepresented. Gender minorities, social minorities, especially in the global south, are still being underrepresented. And the work of the DC on gender here is making sure that they change this perspective by weaving the feminists and also the intersections of coalition, different perspective into discussion on privacy, AI access, and freedom of expression for these underrepresented and minority and women genders into contributing and meaningfully impacting discussion in this space. And their contribution highlight the work of the DC agenda, highlight the importance of bringing women in space, in the IGS space, in contributing meaningfully into the discussions. As I said, there are colleagues in the room who helped me expand more on the details of what the DC is doing. So I'll move now next to the DC on IoT's Internet of Things, is regarding the AI expansion in the transversal nature of the AI. The DC on IoT is working to make sure that the AI devices that are the IoT devices that are produced are we prioritize safety and security from the design and all the different life cycles of these IoT devices. And their work in general highlights the importance of responsible governance in shaping the future and the benefits of those devices that we are using so that we all benefit more efficiently for these devices. Next on, I will talk about the DC on digital health. They are doing very incredible work in the space as well. And to sum up the work on the DC, I would say that they work on intersections of AI and technology, and through their capacity building on AI and also on their activity contribution to the Global Digital Summit and health industry. They're making sure that there is the emphasis on the robust on the need for robust regulations in ensuring that AI in healthcare is ethical and transparent and impactful. And they're building capacity, as I mentioned, to help stakeholders in the space navigate the complexity of digital health innovations in that, and making sure that these innovations are responsible, and they are responsibly managed as well. Last but not the least is also the DC that I'm part of, the data-driven and health technology DC, where we're bringing a bottom-up approach in discussion shaping the internet, the IGF, and our focus here is to, in this bottom-up approach, we want to bring up the perspective of the individuals into discussion. Well, we believe that while giving the space to the public to voice their concern, we are shaping and improving health contribution in the space of health and technology by bringing this upfront, we are in the DC health data-driven technology is actually contributing to the SDGs in healthcare and wellness. And all this, not explaining more on detailing because of the time that we have left, I will just summarize that you have already noticed that these different DCs are focusing on key different areas in the global internet governance space. But their work individually taken, when you analyze it, they are actually contributing to the global spectrum in tackling the issue of AI and AI governance in general, if I can say so. So I will give it the floor to you back, Irena. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and indeed couldn't agree more. Thank you for your applause. Wonderful. And with that, I think we're at the end of, as you named it, the download session, which I think was incredibly rich and incredibly interesting, and I'm really so impressed of the diverse work that is ongoing. But I think with that, we are at the core of this session, that is interaction and discussion, and we're get ready, everybody here in the room and online. So we hope for your questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, whatever. It's open for everything. But while you get ready to prepare your contributions, I'll turn to Mark, whether you have anything to add at the moment, or whether we should hand it over to our participants here and online.
I think we should go straight to a discussion involving everybody here today and online. But just a word to say thanks very much to our colleagues for summarizing a vast amount of work in such an effective and comprehensive way. Many thanks indeed. So there are also representatives of dynamic coalitions in the room. So if anybody has a really specific question relating to a dynamic coalition that's not represented by any of our colleagues of speakers here, there will be somebody in the room possibly who can pick it up, or at least we can take it away. And if you want to put a question now in the room, it's a matter of going up to the podium over there with the microphone, I understand, is the arrangement. I think Jutta is following what's happening online, is that right? And Zhao, sorry, Zhao, yes, who's on screen, yes, okay, Zhao, yes, thank you. Okay, so you've heard a lot. There is a core majority of dynamic coalitions ready to engage with the DDC process, and also, potentially with the WSIS Plus 20 review. We haven't touched on that. Our focus really is on the DDC and sustainable development. So what do you think? Are you assured that dynamic coalitions do have an important role to play within the IGF ecosystem and contributing to not only advancing the IGF's role in the follow-up to the compact, but also the wider diversity of specific issues covered by all these 5 objectives? So anybody who wants to take first question? I see somebody coming up to the podium. Please introduce yourself briefly and then put your question or comment, suggestion, or whatever it is. Okay, thank you.
Good morning, this is Maarten Botterman. I'm also representing the Dynamic Coalition on the Internet of Things. What strikes me is that by outset, this Dynamic Coalition approach is one of pulling stakeholders together to discuss issues throughout the year and coming up particularly on the IGF to demonstrate what they think should be the way forward together, taking into account what happened today and what needs to be in the future. So from that perspective, I think as dynamic coalitions, we could contribute the best by formulating our view on our focus perspective for the specific dynamic coalition on how global good practice looks like, taking into account where we are, what our values are, and how we go forward. So I look forward to hear how others feel about this concept, as maybe even promoting this to one of the default products, outcomes of dynamic coalitions each year.
Thank you, Martin. Who wants to react or comment or add to that very valuable intervention? Thank you very much, Martin. I see, I think it's Wout Natris walking up to the mic. And then I'll check with Jutta if there's somebody online. Okay, after Wout, and then to you, Jutta. Thank you, yes.
Jutta was first. I think Jutta was first, so I will hand her the mic first, Jutta.
Jutta's hidden behind the podium here.
So.
Which is bridging the digital divide, because I do think it's very important to refer to that. It's a main objective of the GDC, and it's been the objective of many of the dynamic coalitions for many years now. And there are also is the dynamic coalition on blockchain assurance and standardization that is working on that issue, the dynamic coalition on the interplanetary internet that we've learned a lot about during these days, how important it is. I remember the Minister for Communication from Saudi Arabia reminding us in his opening speech there will be more digital divides that we have been considering before when it comes to artificial intelligence and to superintelligence, as he named it. So the work of the dynamic coalitions that are trying to close the digital divide, like the coalition on community connectivity, for example, and also the dynamic coalition that is measuring digital inclusion, they all contribute to achieving this main objective of digital inclusion. And I think this will become more important even in the days to come, and that's my comment to that debate. Thank you. And over to you, Wout.
Yes, thank you, Jutta. My name is Wout Natris, and I'm the coordinator of IS3C, Internet Standard Security and Safety Coalition. In the past day, I was present at 2 sessions around the GDC, and the people from New York, from the Tech Envoy's office, that we were moderating. And I asked them literally, what should we as dynamic coalitions do, and what is expected from us? Because we're mostly volunteers working on specific topics, but we've proven that we can come up with content, just like we've heard from our panelists. And after the session, one of the gentlemen walked up to me and said, your interventions are so tremendously important, and I've made one before in a digital town hall, because you are the only one who's speaking of content, of wanting to change things and to help with the implementation. Everybody else is talking about process. So in other words, we have a gigantic opportunity as dynamic coalitions to be proactive. We can set the agenda perhaps a little bit, and if we wait, someone else will set the agenda for us. My suggestion would be that as dynamic coalitions, we make an inventory in the coming weeks what our expectations are to deliver in Oslo in June 2025. If we have that, we can communicate that to the people in New York on the Global Digital Compact, saying this is what we are going to contribute. And if we do that, we set the agenda and we set the topics, at least in part. So I would suggest that we do that in the coming weeks, then discuss in January how we're going to approach it and communicate it, and from there do our work and make sure that we have output in June. And I promise you, as IS3C, we will have on post-quantum cryptography, for example. What's the state in the world at this moment? We're going to research that in the coming 6 months and report on it. So thank you for that, but I think that it's an opportunity for all DCs to promote themselves better, and by default, the IGF itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Wout. That's a very practical proposal there to look ahead to the next IGF in Lillestrøm in Norway and work towards that through building on the discussion today and taking into account all the relevant work we've been describing here that's undertaken by the dynamic coalitions. So shall I turn to Zhao now to provide relay any comments online related to our discussion? Zhao, yeah, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I hope you can hear me well, and greetings from Portugal. And we already have a couple of questions here in the chat, but I'll start with one that from Siva Subramanian. I hope I pronounced it correctly. And it's directed to Tatevik, but I guess that's all speakers can intervene on this question, which was a specific question on the data-driven governance model that was mentioned, specifically in the context of AI. I believe the audience wanted to hear a bit more about it and about the project that was presented by Tatevik. So if you can provide more insights, I guess that the audience would be happy to hear more about this contribution to the GDC from this particular dynamic coalition.
Tatevik, did you want to pick that up, or did you want to go back to the question?
Yeah, there was a bit of an echo around here, so it's a bit hard to...
You couldn't quite hear. Zhao, could you just repeat it?
Sure. So the question is quite broad, so I'm sure that others can also pick it up, but I'll read it as it is. So what is the data-driven governance that the speaker talked about, specifically in the context of AI?
Okay. Tatevik, can you pick that? The relation to AI, I think, is the key element, yeah?
If anybody from the other dynamic coalitions would like to intervene, I could talk about the Internet Universality Indicators and how it supports this. I work on the Internet Universality Indicators. So the way it supports the data-driven, it supports data-driven policy making. Rather, it does have indicators on AI currently, but is not focused only on AI. It has a focus on the right to privacy, for example, and data governance as well as part of one of its themes. But the approach here for IUI ROMEX indicators is to collect the data and help the governments formulate policy recommendations, including policy recommendations on AI, where there are gaps and where there are opportunities in the national context, and inform the policies through the national data that is covered, that is collected and processed. So this is the approach for the IUI ROMEX indicator, which is also a multi-stakeholder approach. Throughout its process, it gathers and establishes a multi-stakeholder advisory board composed of governments, civil society organizations, private sector, academia, and diverse stakeholders to also ensure that the data we collect is supported and at a later stage validated by the representatives of the stakeholder groups to ensure to the extent possible the accuracy and relevance. This is how the framework and hence our dynamic coalition supports it, if other dynamic coalitions.
Thank you, Tatevik. That's very helpful. Shall we just go quickly back to Zhao for a second point online, then we'll go back to the audio participants here in the room. Oh, sorry, Olivier, you wanted to comment. Yep.
Yes, Mark, thank you. Yeah, it's Olivier speaking. Just to jump in, I think this question was specifically regarding the dynamic coalition on data and artificial intelligence. governance. Luca Belli is the chair of that coalition, and he is present at the IGF. So if anybody is interested in those issues, I would suggest you go and find him and ask him the question. They have implemented, actually they have elaborated and published a report in 2024, I can see here, with 44 authors and 25 analysis of this specific topic. That's plenty of reading.
Okay, Zhao, do we have a second point online? Bearing in mind the time we've got? Can't hear you.
Sure, I'm happy to read one. Directed at the whole panel. So it's from Luis Martinez asking, what is the view of the panel regarding how GDC is going to benefit the work of the dynamic coalitions?
How is the GDC going to benefit the work of the coalitions? Who'd like to take that on? Yeah. I mean, it'll certainly enhance the profile of dynamic coalitions in the IGF ecosystem and the model that the coalitions provide for a year-round activity of the IGF. Olivier, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I was going to say something along the lines, ask not what the GDC can do for you, ask what you can do for the GDC. And in effect, I think that's what the coalitions are working on.
Very succinct, great. Okay. Right, anybody in the room want to raise a new angle here? Yep, do you want to go head over to the mic? That one over there, maybe it'll work, yes, thank you. And say who you are briefly, thank you.
I'm Dr. Rajendra Pratap Gupta and I lead 3 dynamic coalitions, digital economy, digital health and environment. And I congratulate all my co-chairs and co-leads for dynamic coalitions for the wonderful work they do. I want to again emphasize there are 3 things that we have to look at the world when it comes to internet technologies. We should look for creating jobs, livelihood for all, and internet for all. I think we are still 2.6 billion people not connected to the internet. As dynamic coalitions, we have to decide, I think we have indicators. So we should look at first indicators, how much did we impact in terms of livelihood creation, how much did we go to connect the unconnected? And I think there's a very important question that was raised on data and AI. So I think data has 2 big issues, integrity of data and integration of data. And we should not prioritize intelligence over it. So I think data integrity, integration should come before artificial intelligence. And last but not least, a very positive change. This time, I don't see big tech in this. Something that I've always emphasized as IGF, we are the most impactful forum for internet technologies. We should aim for a large number of small companies rather than small number of large companies to create the jobs we want and to shape the internet we want, which is democratic. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We're getting close to the end. Time
We
ticking
can have
away.
one more and then we, I think, slowly start wrapping up. Oh, okay, we take 2.
Thank you. So I'm Reyansh Gupta. I'm leading the Dynamic Coalition on Gaming for Purpose. So I just want to add something to the discussions that we're having. You know, dynamic coalitions are doing great work across sectors, but gaming acts as a universal language. And I think, you know, gaming can be integrated everywhere, and I feel like there are multiple sectors and multiple areas where gamification and gaming can just contribute to how we're contributing to the social good itself, and I think that's just what I wanted to add to it. Thank you.
Thanks very much. One more, yes.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for your efforts for this great platform of IGF. I have made this intervention in previous sessions, and I would like to emphasize the importance of taking intellectual property rights into consideration in the digital environment. And I am pleased to, in behalf of my organization, Creators Union of Arab, to take this part on the coalitions. And we take this opportunity in IGF this year to announce about launching a platform for protecting intellectual property in the digital area. It's called Intellectual Property Verification. So it's our pleasure to contribute with you this part of intellectual property rights. Thank you.
Thanks very much, and best of luck with the launch of that, that platform. That's great news, I'm sure. Great contribution, potentially. Okay, we better wrap up. So I think I'm going to look to Jutta and maybe Marcus, is in the room. Do you want to say anything? No? Shaking hands? Okay. All right, Marcus is our coordinator of the coalitions in the coordination group. Anyway, Jutta, do you want to help us wrap up today? Thank you.
Does it work? Okay. I try to take notes of all this important content and comments that we've heard. And let me first say that I really like what Olivier said about the GDC. I do think bringing the GDC to life is what we have to do now. And we've learned today that dynamic coalitions, the 31 dynamic coalitions, are already working to implement the GDC and the 5 main objectives. Let me just refer to some of the very important things we've heard. We were talking about a shared ethos of responsibility, and I do think this is like a red thread that is going through the work of the dynamic coalitions, taking responsibility for marginalized groups, for disadvantaged groups, and also for those their voices have not been heard so far enough. We have been talking about overcoming barriers, and that is also done within the collaboration of dynamic coalitions. We've heard that the internet is the young people's network, and that the GDC asks for child rights assessments in all the work that we are doing, because children are the inhabitants of the internet world, of the digital environment, and therefore it is very important to follow up with that within the work of the dynamic coalitions. We also have heard about the data and the importance of data, and what the internet universality indicators are delivering is much of the basic of the work that the dynamic coalitions do. It gives us orientation where we should go for. We've heard a lot about safety and security, and about the standards we need for safety and security to make our work effective. Eventually, we've also heard about the importance of data-driven health technology, and to be honest, I can tell you, look to Saudi Arabian medical services. I have had the opportunity to take that chance, and it's very data-driven what they are doing there. So I would also like to refer the dynamic coalition on data-driven health technologies and on digital health to look at your Saudi Arabian colleagues, and I take this opportunity to thank them. Eventually, I would like to refer to what is a dynamic coalition. The concept of dynamic coalition started with the very beginning, 19 years ago, with the first Internet Governance Forum. So we have many dynamic coalitions that are dating back to 2007, 2006, starting their work then. And it's an open concept. So it's bottom up. Everybody who wants to join the work of dynamic coalitions, just go to the IGF website. You will find there the terms and conditions. All the groups are open, the mailing lists are open. You can go there and you can join us in our work to implement the Global Digital Compact. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jutta. This is indeed also my personal takeaway, that we need more work and more impact of the dynamic coalitions, being it the implementation of the GDC or the future work of the IGF. So this has been incredibly inspiring today. So I have lots of ideas to bring back home and to think more about and to discuss more in detail. So thank you, everybody. And with that, over to you, Mark.
Okay, well, what can I add to that? I think it's been a great session. I hope people who perhaps aren't aware of dynamic coalitions have learned a lot today about the scope and range of activities and their direct relevance to the objectives of the compact and to the sustainable development agenda, the goals, the SDGs, and as I said earlier when I touched on the WSIS Plus 20 review. And I have a shout out there for the Dynamic Coalition on Environment. We heard in one of the sessions today that the environmental issues will be a major element, a major component of the WSIS Plus 20 review, and we have a dynamic coalition comprising experts in that very field. So that's the core message, I think, today. If you go to the IGF website, you will see the list of dynamic coalitions. You just go to the menu and then scroll down, and then you can hit on every coalition, maybe the ones you're particularly interested in, and you can find out a whole lot more about them, what their missions are, their action plans, what they are delivering in terms of tangible outcomes, and how they are engaging in wider processes such as those of the UN that are now providing the context for all our work over the year ahead. So let's all work together on that to ensure that dynamic coalitions fulfill that potential. Okay, I better stop there because we are over time, I guess, and I won't ramble on anymore. So I'll conclude there with thanks to everybody who contributed, all the planners of the session, the technical support team here in Riyadh, the hosts who've done such a fantastic job here hosting the IGF and providing this incredible facility here for our main session this morning, and thanks to our panelists for all their diligence and work at the hard-pressed time to capture key elements of all the dynamic coalitions that have stepped forward in the context of the GDC. So many thanks again to all of you. Okay, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you.